little taste of our straw rockets, and kind of, we got to dive in there, and now we're going to step back and we're going to say, okay, what's our goal here? Ashlyn, stop. That's loud and annoying. Love you. But shh. Okay. So now we're going to take a step back. We're going to talk about some of this stuff. We're going to read our story about rockets, and we're going to see where we can go from there. Okay. Got it? Okay. So this is a cool story. It's called The Rocket Age Takes Off. The Rocket Age Takes Off. Okay. Written by Stephen Krinsky, illustrated by Michael Shortley. Okay, Jaya, I asked you 3 times now. Please stop. Back up. You're also humming like directly into my microphone. Do you see how that's why I asked you to stop? That's why. Okay, the rocket age takes off. It was a good thing Robert Goddard didn't mind the cold. The winter of 1926 was harsh at his Aunt Effie's farm, and he already had been out there several times. The farm was only a couple miles from his home in Worcester, Massachusetts, but they were long miles in the bitter cold. On some of the trips, Dr. Goddard had gone in a horse-drawn wagon. On others, he'd traveled by car, but always he carried the same thing he carefully packed away in the back, a liquid-propelled rocket. And this says, this funny little speech bubble from the cow. Here he comes again. Maybe we ought to move. Already hard.
Cow joke.
Good pun. Good cow joke. Okay. And if you guys can kind of see in this picture, he's got a rocket behind him in that vehicle. Sadie, you turned off your camera again.
Yes.
You need to put that away. You don't get to play with it in class. Good
How come a part of it is my and a part of it is yours? No.
No, that fly is really annoying. It likes to bother me on my prep. It just dies on that. Yeah, I think they're obviously like they need a kind of cartoon. Stop by. Oh, here we go. I can't stop. Okay. Dr. Goddard had named his rocket Nell. It had taken years to design and build all the necessary equipment. But that did not bring success by itself. Launching Nell properly had turned out to be difficult. One time, Nell had fallen over to the left. Another time, she fell over to the right. And just a week earlier, a fizzled launch had jammed Nell into the frame that supported her, damaging them both. Fizzled launch. Nell. This is a nebula, which is a group of stars. Little Dipper, Ursa Minor. Big Dipper, Ursa Major.
Wait. My dad told me about the Big Dipper.
That's awesome.
Well, I was like, what? But to me, in the like a picture on the phone,
off my chair.
onto the picture, like in the phone, it looks like it was a pan.
Okay, are you counting? They would be so solid. Knowing that we will stay in line to keep them everything that they are going to be. Thank you. Yeah, I think I really like that. But they show why they call them the dippers. Because they used to drink out of those little wheels like that into a glass of water, typically called it ladles. Okay. Or a dipper, I mean. Whoa. I keep mixing them up. Okay. But Dr. Goddard did not get discouraged easily. Born in 1882, he had often been sick growing up. Some of these illnesses lasted for months, and he developed great patience to get through them. Even so, by the time he reached high school, young Bob was 2 years behind other students his age. Science was always his passion, though. Bob was constantly tinkering with one thing or another. He tried to turn graphite into diamonds and experimented with lightweight aluminum balloons. He even devoted considerable time building a perpetual motion machine, which, had he ever succeeded, would run forever. Perpetual motion is something, it perpetual keeps going forever and ever and ever. So perpetual motion would be motion. E equals mc squared. E is the energy. M is the mass. C is the speed of light in a vacuum. Question. What do you get when you cross a comet with a guppy? A starfish.
Huh?
Okay.
I don't get the joke.
A guppy is a kind of fish. Okay. So what do you get when you cross a comet with a guppy? A starfish. Okay. How many balls of string would it take to reach the moon? Okay, excuse me, fourth graders. Just one really big ball of string. Ridiculous. Well, there's all and I have something in common. Like, ridiculous joke.
These are good jokes. I like this one. I don't get any of these two. I go.
Third grader.
I was actually going to tell you what cow crosses.
Oh yeah, you forgot to tell me. You have to tell me after class.
11 to cow.
Okay.
Is that an alien?
At 16.
Miss, you're not even showing me the picture.
I did show you the picture. Not my fault. You weren't paying attention. At 16, Bob read H.G. Wells' science fiction novel, The War of the Worlds. It told the story of how Martians invaded Earth in their spaceship and very nearly destroyed humankind. As Wells described the events, they seemed very believable. The book made Bob think about outer space and what it would be like to get there. The next year, Bob climbed a cherry tree to cut off some dead branches. At one point, he looked down at the ground and suddenly had a thought. He imagined how wonderful it would be to make some device which eventually has the possibility of ascending to Mars, and how it would look on a small scale. It's sent up from the meadow at my feet. 1 Martian year equals 686.98 Earth days. So a year in Mars time is almost double a year on Earth.
Is it a chapter book or just a regular book?
Just a lot of good information in here.
And good jokes. I know. There is jokes in there. There's one joke. I'll tell you. Chicken across the road.
Hey. All right, Luis and Amy, desist.
What does desist mean?
Means stop. And now, 27 years later, Dr. Goddard was working in that direction, but even he had to admit that now looked a bit crude. She was 10 feet long and held in place by a triangular skeleton. On top were the motor and combustion chambers, which would be shot into the sky. Below that, get a drink of water, please. On each side were the 2 propellant tanks. Narrow pipes connected them to the chamber above. Nell weighed a little over 5 pounds on her own and 5 more when loaded with fuel. The motor was at the top because Dr. Goddard thought that placing it there would provide greater stability in flight. When Dr. Goddard realized this design didn't help, he moved the motor in later models to the more modern position under the rocket. So currently, let's see. So if you look at this, like here's the gasoline tank. Here's gasoline lines. The rocket motors up here. It doesn't show us the whole thing in this picture. Liquid oxygen line, liquid oxygen tank. And there's that. What did the cat do when he got dirty in Dr. Goddard's workshop?
I don't know.
He took a meteor shower.
I did it because
Meteors are
from shower.
falling bits of rock from space, right?
Yeah. That was Amy's stuff.
Okay.
There's a lot of jokes.
Okay, please put a bubble in your mouth. Louise, don't like that hand. You don't want it to break. Okay, and one of them already did break, so. Rockets had been originally developed in China. As early as 1232 or 1232, the Chinese used them while fighting their frequent enemies, the Mongols. The name rocket itself came from the Italian word rochetta, a small firecracker first manufactured in 1379. The Chinese rockets were made of bamboo tubes. They were sealed at one end and filled with gunpowder. The tubes were tied to long sticks planted in the ground. When a fuse ignited the gunpowder, the mixture of fire and gas shot out into the open end. The force of the blast propelled the tubes high into the air. They rained down on the Mongols, injuring some and probably scaring the rest. The giant panda is native to China, eats 99% bamboo. The entire Great Wall stretches about 5,500 miles. Fireworks originated in China. Here's a Mongol warrior. The Mongols were bamboozled.
What are
That was just what they call that type of people.
China?
Yeah, it says in China.
But who are the people? Like the Mongols.
Okay. As rocket science. As rocket science improved, the rockets themselves became more powerful. By the early 1800s, Amy, you have a water bottle. By the early 1800s, the British scientist Sir William Congreve had invented an iron rocket that could fly 900 feet. During the War of 1812, a war between Great Britain and the United States, the British Navy famously used Congreve's rockets, firing them on Fort McHenry outside Baltimore, Maryland. One witness to this attack was the young lawyer Francis Scott Kelly. He composed a poem about the battle, Among the things he could see by the dawn's early light were the rocket's red glare. His words later became lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner. I thought I was bad.
Oh, see.
And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting.
What's the joke?
That our flag. Okay, you guys are all gonna have to go back if you cannot be quiet. It was not surprising that rockets were used in wars because they had so much in common with another weapon, the cannon. Both devices created an explosion inside a metal tube that was open at one end. But there was only one important difference between the two. In a cannon, the explosion inside the tube propelled the cannonball into the air. In a rocket, the explosion sent the tube itself, or the rocket, flying. The size of the explosion also mattered a lot. The bigger it was, the farther a rocket or cannonball would fly. Of course, the explosion had to be controlled and predictable. Otherwise, the rocket or cannon could be easily damaged or destroyed. And right here, the Civil War started in 1861. That same year, the Great Comet, one of 8 in the 19th century, was visible. Question, what do you call a multicolored cannonball?
I don't know.
Artillery.
What?
So like artillery is like I'm having a brain fart. No, well, so like artillery is like firepower and stuff.
Fireball?
Not fireballs. So think of like things like fire. So artillery is a class of heavy weapons built to launch munitions far beyond range and power of infantry firearms. So a cannon, a cannon is an artillery weapon, right? And so anyway, they're just kind of playing on the words. It's another pun. So if it's colored, kind of. Okay, firing cannonballs is a real blast. Oh man. Okay. So the challenge facing all early rocket designers was how to give the rocket enough thrust, enough power to soar safely into the air. In the 1980s, a Russian scientist named Konstantin Silvosky, I don't know, determined the exploding gunpowder would never provide enough energy to lift a large rocket. And any kind of fuel and gas form would be too bulky to store on the rocket itself as it lifted. Silvosky kept the ideas to himself, though, so other scientists did not learn them until many years later. Liquid fuels, though, held more potential. Manageable amounts, ignited in the right way, could generate significant power. Dr. Goddard independently came to the same conclusion in the years leading up to his attempted launches. He also determined that the most promising liquid fuels were a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. Okay. Liquid fuel, thumbs up. It's really hopping with these liquid fuels. Gas storage too heavy. Gunpowder, not enough energy. It's hopping with the liquid fuels. Alrighty,
There's also a bunny in the picture.
Okay. Nobody gets to touch my stool. It's mine.
Not even Brayden.
Amy, I was just over there. It's not my fault you didn't look because you were too busy swiping stools.
Oh my God.
Okay. But knowing liquid fuels were needed did not solve all the challenges Dr. Goddard faced. Amy, stop. 3 of his specific advances came from his research between 1908 and 1923. First, he pioneered using a steam nozzle in conjunction with the combustion chamber to direct the flow of hot gases in the right direction. Second, he explored at what speed the fuel should be sent into the combustion chamber. Establishing the proper flow or pressure was important to creating the most effective explosion, right? You need the right amount of gas to come in order to explode, or like to burn and explode, combust, right? And third, he proposed to use the use of multiple stages to send his rocket aloft. As the fuel in each stage was used up, the stage itself would fall away from the rocket. That way, the active rocket would not have to carry the dead weight from the parts that were already used up. Faster than a sugar rush. Hi, hi, hi. Faster than a sugar rush. Come on, guys.
Oh my God. It's because sugar rush.
Okay. Stop. Go away. Be gone. Using such designs, Goddard boldly concluded that a rocket could someday fly to the moon. Many critics, including the editorial writers at the newspaper, the New York Times, laughed at this idea. They didn't believe that any rocket could work in the vacuum of space because they assumed that in a vacuum there would be nothing for the force of the burning fuel to push against. And they made fun of Dr. Goddard for lacking the basic knowledge ladled out daily in high schools. Get real, Ferris wheel. Goddard thinks he can go to the moon. Cows in space, now that's utterly ridiculous. No, this is not the vacuum of space. What are the cows' favorite things in our solar system? The moons. Milky Way.
I see a milk bottle right there. The Milky Way.
It's really just a cluster of stars that you can see, and it looks just kind of creamy. But out in the sky, it looks like just this kind of light cluster or like wave through the sky. But it's really a bunch of stars. But they call it the Milky Way because it looks kind of like a spill of milk across the sky.
It has the same name as the camera.
Newton's third law: for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Reaction, the balloon goes up. Action, air rushes down. Right? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
And plus, you can't breathe without us. Like you can't breathe out of Earth. There are no trees on the moon. You can't breathe. You can't breathe. You cannot breathe in outer space without a helmet or anything that you need for outer space or something like that. There's no trees in space.
All right.
That's why. Trees.
Shh. But Dr. Goddard remained convinced that he was right, and the conviction that brought him to his latest attempt on March 16th, as he and his wife Esther watched. His associate Henry Schoch used a blowtorch to set off the igniter on top of the motor. Then Schoch lit an alcohol lamp under the fuel tanks. The resulting heat sent the fuel up the pipes into the combustion chamber, and a flame soon appeared at the end of the nozzle. So many years of work came down to this moment. So you guys are seeing, so set up here. Shh. Amy, stop it. We better head north early. Yo, if that takes flight, I'm out of sight, says the snowman. Okay, because there's fire and explosions. What type of music do astronauts like to listen to in space?
I don't know.
Neptunes. You knew it. Neptunes.
Neptunes.
What do you think, Esther? Is all my hard work going to pay off?
Is that a joke?
Yeah, it's a joke. Well, not really.
Well, we only have like
Okay.
4 more pages.
Dr. Goddard himself wrote down what happened next. The rocket did not rise at first, but the flame came out and there was a steady roar. After a number of seconds, it rose slowly until it cleared the frame. And then at the express train speed, curved over to the left and striking the ice and snow, still going at a rapid rate. It looked almost magical as it rose, without any appreciably greater noise or flame, as if it said, I've been here long enough. I think I'll be going somewhere else if you don't mind. In the end, Nell rose 41 feet into the air in 2.5 seconds before her fuel was exhausted and she fell down to the earth. When do astronauts have lunch?
I know.
When?
I think
Ashlyn? No. It's when do they have lunch?
at lunchtime.
Ah! Kale! Man, how'd you know that? How do you know that 2 in a row? He's really good at it. I don't think they're all in that joke book. Okay. Score 1 for Goddard. Go, baby, go. What Goddard saying about his rocket. So she went 42 feet up in the air in 2 seconds and then crashed back down to earth. Okay. Shh. Nell's flight that day, short as it was truly beginning the rocket age, and further progress came swiftly. Only 43 years later, a rocket still following Dr. Goddard's basic design carried Apollo 11 to the moon. Robert Goddard did not live to see that day, but in one way, he predicted it. As he noted in a speech he gave at his high school graduation in 1904, this has often proved true, that the dream of yesterday is the hope of today and the reality of tomorrow. Shh. The Apollo 11 mission landed the first humans on the moon. Amy, stop. Before humans, monkeys were launched into space.
What?
Before they launched humans into space, apparently they launched monkeys into space.
Space
Poor monkeys.
Did they tell you it's aliens? That's why it's aliens.
Really?
Imagine that.